Okay, gonna go ahead and call this special meeting to order. If I could ask everybody to please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chris Buckman. Brandon Earl.
Here.
Andrea Kreifels.
Here.
Jason Newberry.
Here.
Deanna Garver.
Here.
Tom Henning.
Here.
Pat Zika.
Okay, the next thing we have is the adoption of the agenda.
I'll make a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Recognition of patrons and staff. Got anybody?
Nobody this week.
Okay. Moving on to our first and only discussion item.
Yeah.
23-24 budget.
I'm gonna sneak over here so I can be a little closer to Randy.
So
So
yeah, we
we're,
do have Randy on the phone, right?
yes, I'm sorry, we do have Randy Ford, who's a accountant who's been working for the district, on our budget for several years now, does a great job for us. Really appreciate his work each year for us. And, so tonight we are here to, discuss the budget that has been presented to the board. And then, after that discussion, go through the process of going through the statutory requirement of publishing the budget for 10 days prior to the revenue neutral rate and the budget hearing. That'll be part of our regular board meeting on September 11th. And that puts us in enough time in the newspaper to make that happen. So kind of tonight, for the first part here, we'll just have discussion. Randy, if you kind of want to go through, normal deal on budgeting for this year, and then the board has any questions for you or Darcy or any of us, then we can kind of go from there.
All right, well, I'll just do just the quick 2-minute overview. So as we normally do, we always just kind of start with last year. Obviously, your enrollment numbers are what really drives everything. So we just looked at last year's. Generally, we're going to just bump everything up just a little bit to give yourself a little bit of anticipated growth and some flexibility as far as trying to avoid having to republish. So we use, like I said, we start off last year's numbers and just really pretty much just took everything up just a little bit just to bring everything up just to inflate it just a bit. If you look at your code 99, that kind of gives you the overall quick summary. Obviously, general fund's 20, that's statutorily required. You'll see your supplemental general fund, the mill rate went down just slightly. That's kind of a function of valuation and cash balance. The published amount for the capital outlay is 8, which is a little bit higher than last year. I think if I remember correctly, I believe you adopted 8, and what happens is if your final valuation ends up being higher than the estimate, the mill rate will go down a little bit because they assess the tax, not the mill rate. Bond and interest is right even with last year. We've been just kind of watching that, trying to keep that mill rate as even as possible, looking on really down the road at debt service requirements based on your current debt. So that's kind of the overall view of the district. The rec commission's down there at the bottom. So they actually had their revenue neutral rate hearing already. They're going to actually adopt the revenue neutral rate, which is less than this published amount. So Darcy and I discussed this earlier. You'll just want to make sure that when you approve your final budget, that you approve it at the revenue neutral rate for the rec commission, which the final form you have will reflect that. There's always kind of a little question as to whether if you should adjust anything down that you publish after what was sent and then reported by the county in essence in August, and we went ahead and just left it at the way that it was reported to the county. But like I said, since they didn't adopt the revenue neutral rate, your final budget will have to reflect that for the rec commission. Like I said, everything else is we've talked about before. Like capital outlay, we always show that you're going to spend everything. That just gives you it's almost a contingency in essence in case something significant happens. Those types of things. Obviously, the intent isn't to spend all that. Kind of We do the same thing with food service. Increase the estimated revenue a bit just to give yourself the ability in case food costs go way up, participation's higher, those types of things. Just trying to look ahead, trying to avoid republishing anything that you have to. And based on this budget or what's published, you are over the revenue neutral rate, which is down there at the very bottom. That's what was sent to the county. I'll be glad to take any questions you might have or if you need anything clarified.
Any questions on any of that? So Randy, just so everybody out there watching understands kind of what's going on here. The revenue neutral rate would have been 24.7, correct? And we are set.
Yeah, well, that's for so what happens is there's a revenue neutral rate for general, which is irrelevant because
Right.
you have to do the 20.
Right.
There's a rate for capital outlay, so it's 7.293, and the bill published is 8. Then those other three funds, supplemental general, the other two, supplemental general and bond and interest are combined. So it's 24.701. The combination of those two published is 25.564. So you're just barely over. I guess you're over about 0.8 on the combined two, and actually 0.8, approximately more like 0.7, I guess, for the capital outlay. So you're between the two, you're in excess of the revenue. Like I said, you have to ignore general. It looks like you're about 1.5 over the revenue neutral rate total.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, I guess we can move on to our one and only action item for the night. And that would be to publish this budget that we just kind of explained to us.
I make a motion to publish the 2023-2024 budget.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same? Okay. That is the only item that we have, and since it's a special meeting, that's what we got to limit it to. So Randy, thanks for joining us. Thanks for explaining that.
Sure, you're welcome.
And we are adjourned.
All right, thank you, Randy.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Randy.
it. Thank you, guys. That's a quick meeting, but I appreciate you coming in.
Disconnected. I was gonna talk.
Could we work something out for the, for the meeting while we're all here?
Yeah.
For our policy meeting?